said stop that. Okay, we're going to have an extra lesson here in Unit 8, which I've entitled Extra, 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 and it's based on what we were talking about in the previous lesson, and that has to do with slope. Now, we're going to talk about a little geometry idea here, and then we're going to mix in a little bit of algebra at the end. Here's the geometry idea. The idea of parallel lines. Two lines are parallel if they lie on the same plane and they do not intersect, and that's supposed to be my example right there. Those, but the arrows on the ends indicate lines, and this symbol right here, two little lines that kind of are slanted like that, that means it's parallel to. This means line A is parallel to line B. Okay, they don't intersect, they go on and on forever, but they never touch. Now, two lines are perpendicular if they intersect to form at a right angle or a 90-degree angle, and that's my diagram right here. That little symbol means a right angle or a 90-degree angle. And this symbol, which looks kind of like an upside down capital T, this means it's perpendicular to, so this says line A is perpendicular to B. Now, if you're wondering, what does this have to do with slope? Slope describes the way a line is slanted. So if the lines are parallel, they're slanted the same way, they have the same slope. Lines that are parallel, non-vertical lines that are parallel, have the same slope. Now, perpendicular, it's a little more complicated, and you'll study this later on in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. Two lines are perpendicular if their slopes are, you ready? Opposite reciprocals. Opposite meaning different signs. Reciprocals meaning you make the numerator the denominator and the denominator the numerator. Now, the third geometry idea that I want to talk about is the idea of what we call skew lines. Two lines are skew lines if they do not lie on the same plane and therefore do not intersect. Now, I can't draw that because I can't draw in in different planes, but the ideas would be like this, like my arms with the lines. They don't intersect, but they're not on the same plane. Those are called skew lines. I don't have a symbol for that. So these are all geometric ideas. This is stuff that you'll study in geometry, but because of the ideas of slope that we're discussing, we can bring these in and we can talk about them. And remember, parallel lines, same slope, perpendicular lines, opposite reciprocals. Now, my other algebraic idea that I wanted to mention is that of what we call a scatter plot. A scatter plot is when you are gathering data and you're trying to show a relationship between two sets of data. It suggests an association exists between two sets of data, whether or not it does. An association exists in the two sets of data if you get the results and they cluster or gather along a line. Now, if you can see my three examples, you can see this, although not a perfect straight collinear line here, right? They do look like they have a pattern. They have a trend. They have an association. And because that line that is described by those points goes up and to the right, slope is positive, we call that a positive linear association or a positive trend, or sometimes just a positive relationship. Now, in the next example, you can see I've got a bunch of points there, and they're not collinear, but again, they do look like they form a pattern, kind of going down and to the right. Well, if I draw a line that kind of splits all that data there, you can see that that line has negative slope. And so we call this type of an association a negative linear association, or a negative trend, a negative correspondence, different ways to describe that. Now, my third example, the points are kind of all over the place, and there's not a line that is easily discerned from points scattered all over the place. So we say that there's no trend, there's no linear association. This information you will see on the proficiency test. So this is good stuff to know, and remember, practice, practice, practice.